Hidden in every storybook, upside down and backwards round, tucked within the afterword lie the secrets dark and true that fill the pages of the Book of Skary.
In spite of the tragedy that marked the three little pigs' birthdays, their childhoods were as happy as any pigs could be. And though they lived in desperate poverty, their home was always rich with love. This is not to say their lives were easy. Strongheart was always getting himself into scraps with the boys from the village. He swore he always fought fair, but Mother wished he wouldn't fight at all. "It's just the things they say about us, Mother," Strong would insist. "Are only words," Mother would finish. And Strong would feel awful for a day or two, but he would be back at it soon enough. Meekfoot was a sweet boy, but the poor child was afraid of his own tail. He wouldn't play with other children. He wouldn't even go out into the garden by himself. "Oh, my dear Meek," Mother would say to herself, "he'll never be able to go out on his own, will he?" The daughter was nothing like either of her brothers. For one, she had never been given a proper name. All her mother's joy was gone by the time she remembered to name her, and so the daughter was simply called Pig. Pig didn't mind her namelessness. She was no less loved by her mother and brothers. The only trouble about it was that having no name meant everyone called her something different, and it was hard to keep it all straight. To the teacher who sometimes visited from the village, Pig was Miss Snout-in-a-Book, as she was nearly always reading. To the shopkeeper who bought her mother's truffles from her, she was Old Sage Ears, for she seemed so much wiser than other children her age. And to many others, she was Our Blessing, because everyone remembered the night she was nearly taken away, though no one liked to speak of the brother who was. The little family in the cottage did the best they could, and they were happy. But trouble was spreading across the land. There was talk of wars in nearby kingdoms, and food became more expensive. The Hog King imposed new taxes, and soon no one could buy Mother's truffles. "I can no longer provide for you, my piglets," Mother cried one day. "You will fare better out in the world, where you may find some work to support yourselves. Promise me you'll watch over each other, dear loves. My poor heart could not bear to lose you forever." Strongheart vowed no one would hurt his siblings without taking him out first. Meekfoot sobbed, but swore he'd try to be brave. Pig promised she'd keep her brothers out of trouble. And then the three set out upon the road, heavy-hearted but hopeful to find their fortune. A few miles from home they found an abandoned farm on which to rest for the night. "How lucky we are," said Strongheart. "I thought we'd have to sleep in the grass." "Perhaps we could stay here forever," said Meekfoot, though he knew that wasn't possible. Pig was about to say something when a sound caught her attention, a creaking sound, coming from above them within the farmhouse. "Somebody's here," Meekfoot whimpered. Not just one somebody, but a dozen, and each with long claws that went click, click, click as they descended the stairs from the attic, where they had been waiting for a meal to come wandering in. There were only seconds to make a decision, but 3 decisions were made, and only one was wise. Pig looked behind her and saw a brick stove in the corner. "This way," she mouthed to her brothers, and ran to it, climbing up inside the chimney just far enough to stay out of sight. Strongheart followed her until he spied some forgotten kindling off to the side. He grabbed a stick from it and broke it over his knee, making a crude spear. Then he crouched in the shadow of the stove and waited. Meekfoot panicked. He spun this way and that way until he found a pile of straw much closer to himself than the stove, and dove underneath it just as the creatures from the attic arrived. "What are they doing?" Pig wondered of her brothers. But she was afraid to look lest she attract attention, and the creatures were much too close. She could hear them, and there were so many. The floorboards creaked from their weight, and they had claws that tapped upon the wood as they moved. They panted like dogs, and she could hear the wet sound of tongues as they licked their chops. Wolves, they had to be. "My, oh my," said one of them. His voice was rough and deep. "I am so very hungry. Wouldn't it be lovely if we had ourselves some fat little piggies right about now?" The others laughed in their snarling way. "Yes, indeed," the first continued. "And wouldn't it be even lovelier if there were a plump little piggy just waiting for us?" He moved past the stove. "Right?" He was at the straw pile. "Here!" Pig heard Meekfoot squeal in terror as he was dragged out from his hiding place. Then there was a horrible cracking sound, and Meek squealed no more. Pig wanted to cry, but she couldn't even breathe. At times she thought she'd lose her grip and fall right out of the chimney. "This one's for you, boys," said the first wolf. "I believe I spotted at least 2 more with him. Find them. Why, I'm so hungry I could eat an entire family of fat little piggies." "Yes, sir, Captain, sir," said one of the other wolves. Pig could hear their noses working at the air, and she knew it would only be a matter of time before they found her out. But Strongheart had other plans. He jumped out from his hiding place, brandishing his pathetic spear. "Think you can gobble me up? You've got another thing coming," he threatened, to much laughter. He fought bravely for being so defenseless, but his bravery merely delayed his inevitable and gruesome end. Pig felt the world spin around her. She could barely hear a sound beyond her heart pounding in her ears, but she thought she heard one of the wolves say, "There's too much blood, sir. We shouldn't stay in this place." "Yes, I think you're right," agreed the one they called Captain. "Boys, time to move out." There was snarling and howling and other frightful noises, and then those sounds grew further away until there was nothing. Not a whisper, not even the gossip of crickets.